Continuing now with our lead story, bad things happening to we the people overseas and on the border. With us now here in New York City, Monica Crowley, and from Washington, Kirsten Powers. Any quibbles with the memo, Kirsten?
Well, look, I'll agree with you that there's definitely a lot of chaos around the world, though I tend to feel that there generally is chaos in the world, and I think that would be true even pick any president. I'll pick Ronald Reagan, who, you know, I think you admired a lot, and there was plenty of horrible things happening and plenty of bad dictators behaving badly when Reagan was in power, planes being shot down, for example, by, you know, someone flying a Russian jet. So I think these bad things happen. So I think it's a little unfair to lay all of this at Obama's feet. Would you say, since
you brought it up, that President Obama is respected the way Reagan was respected, or you can use the word feared, by his adversaries? Do you think that Reagan and Obama both ran foreign policy in the same way?
No, I don't think they ran the same kind of foreign policy, and I don't think that Obama has the same kind of...
Would you say that Obama is perceived to be weaker than Reagan?
I'd say he'd be perceived as probably being a little more disengaged. I don't know if it's weaker.
Not weaker.
I mean, we've disagreed about this before, because I think that you have to. You often forget how aggressive he's actually been in terms of with the drone campaign. So I doubt if you ask people in Pakistan, for example.
I don't forget about it. I was one of the president's biggest supporters on that program.
He's actually been pretty aggressive, and I don't think anyone in Pakistan would say that he's weak. So I'm just who's being bombed by him. So I think that, you know, in some areas he's not as respected, because I think he's not as engaged. Though I actually am somebody who thinks that some of the over-engagement of George Bush, for example, has led to some of these problems, and I don't know that the United States getting involved in a lot of these problems. That's the liberal viewpoint. But I think that when you have a guy like Putin, who obviously is trying to humiliate Barack Obama and succeeding to a certain extent, that if you're a citizen of the United States, you got to be worried. We are now involved in another Cold War. But then why did we not feel that way when they went into Georgia when George Bush was president? You know what I mean? I don't like. This is the way they behave, regardless of who's president. It's not being caused by Barack Obama.
Crowley wants to jump in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, the difference is that President Reagan was all about restoring American power and prestige.
Let's deal with her point about Georgia and Bush.
Well, because George W. Bush, and look, I was very critical of him of not drawing a line with Putin when Putin went into Georgia.
So would you say that Putin humiliated Bush too?
Yes, and President Bush, because he was on his way out, did not respond. I think that was a huge mistake, because then that allowed Putin free reign to do what he wanted, as we see now in Crimea and Ukraine.
Do you think that the world feared Bush Cheney more than Obama?
Yes, and this gets to my point about Reagan. Reagan after Jimmy Carter was about restoring American power and prestige, right?
Yes.
What you have now is President Obama presiding over the collapse of American power and prestige.
But powers say that's not true, that the same kind of problems that Obama is dealing with have always been there, and they're no worse.
The difference is that the international world has always been dominated by chaos and violence. That's correct, because there is no central organizing principle beyond the raw exercise of power. The only times you get any relative peace, and the world is always chaotic, but anytime you get any relative order and peace is when there is a dominant power, and preferably a freedom-based one like the United States, and not a tyranny like the Soviet Union, is when the United States is perceived as strong in real terms, so that bad actors like Putin are less inclined to act and to tempt. And if they do act, they know that holy hell will be brought down on them by the United States and by our allies. There is nobody in the world now.
We don't have any allies to stand up with us anymore. And Margaret Thatcher is long gone.
And that's a collapse of American leadership.
We have weakness in Europe, and I think, Powers, we have weakness in Washington. I do believe that President Obama is a weak leader across the board.
I know you think that, but just Monica, I'm just listening to you, and I'm just remembering, like I said, a jet full of Americans being shot down, you know, when Reagan was president. So it's not true that they don't behave badly when we have a strong person you think is a strong president.
What was the response? I mean,
it was 5 days later. 5 days later, Reagan came back from the ranch after he didn't want to.
And made a very forceful statement, and then followed through on policy. And with this president, you don't get any of that.
Wait, Powers. Reagan strangled the Soviet Union, so it collapsed. I mean, he browbeat them into a situation where they lost their entire empire.
Over a long period of time, Reagan did that. And my point is, I'm going to the point of where you guys are saying that these things happen because Obama is weak, and I'm saying very bad things happen. And I think America, a bunch of Americans being shot down by a Russian fighter pilot. Well, Reagan is president.
But what happened in the totality of his administration? What happened in the totality of Reagan's administration? All right.
Well, I would say in the totality of Obama's administration, how many Americans have been shot out of the sky?
I mean, I think we're in recession. Our power is in recession on every single front. Let's give Monica the last word.
When you look at the last 6 years, what you see, generally speaking, is that this president has allowed the enemies to advance. He's abandoned our allies. I mean, all you have to do is talk to Bibi Netanyahu about that, and he's gutted our military. So the signal sent to the bad guys is, you can advance, the good guys are in retreat, and you know what the history of the lesson of history is? The wheels come off the world, and you get a much bigger cataclysm than you would if you had a strong American
American that ISIS
president.
army, if they succeed in taking over Iraq, which they might.
Yeah, we shouldn't have invaded Iraq. They wouldn't be there.
We should have bombed the hell out of them when they started coming down.
There would be no ISIS.
Hey, listen.
It's true.
For every problem, there is a solution. When the ISIS army invaded Iraq, we should have bombed the hell out of them. That's what we should have done, in my humble opinion.
And the Iraqi government.
Wait, I gotta go. Ladies, thank you. Sure. Directly ahead. Denver, seeing an influx of homeless people and blaming it on legalized pot. Later, as advertised, Charles Cradham and I will discuss the clear and present danger to America. Also, a verdict in the Jesse Ventura defamation lawsuit. Is it legal on that? Those reports after these messages.